Hey, if you like my videos, you might also like my comedy series YouTube Blue, which premieres every Saturday on the YouTube Blue YouTube channel. Go check out the link in the description and the card above to watch the latest episode. Now on with the video. The Amazing Spider-Man movies aren't thought of as that great. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 specifically was a very poorly received movie. However, Sony planned for these movies to start a long-running franchise including tons of sequels and spin-offs, culminating as a part of a Spider-Man cinematic universe. In a previous video, I talked specifically about the canceled plans for The Amazing Spider-Man 3, because that was the most developed of these projects. And I would recommend watching that video so you have a little bit of background. And while The Amazing Spider-Man 3 was more developed, there were looser plans for a ton of other movies that never got made that we're going to talk about today. Keep in mind I do a lot of inferring in these videos and I don't always make it entirely clear what is definitely what is going to happen and what is me filling in the gaps, so don't mind me if I slip up from time to time. Now, again, you should watch that other video for more background, but here's the gist of what we talked about. The Amazing Spider-Man franchise was originally conceptualized to be a franchise that would start with a trilogy of movies directed by Mark Webb, that would each be a character-focused movie with one villain. Then after that, they would continue with more movies, with the hope being that they would eventually build up to a movie where Spider-Man fights the Sinister Six, something they had been hoping for since the Sam Raimi movies. But The Amazing Spider-Man came out in 2012, the same year the Avengers proved the cinematic universe formula could work. So Sony immediately went, well, we have the biggest superhero in the world, we should do something like this. They determined that their version of the Avengers was the Sinister Six, with it being a team of supervillains. So they started speeding up their plans to bring the Sinister Six in, hoping that they could catch the superhero wave while it was big and make a bunch of sequels and spin-offs building up to it. If you looked at the leak emails at Sony, the plans they had were all over the place. But the ones I'll be talking about today are movies that were pretty much definitely on the slate and were the most likely to be made. By the end, their short-term, basic plan was to do a Venom solo movie in 2016, The Amazing Spider-Man 3 in 2018, a Sinister Six movie in 2019 or 2020, and The Amazing Spider-Man 4 in 2020 or beyond. But there were other movies planned both within that slate and beyond that slate. There were other spin-offs planned, and they planned to make at least 6 Amazing Spider-Man movies. So with some speculation, here were their plans. In 2016, we would have gotten a Venom solo movie. There were 2 versions of this being tossed around. Either one would have been the introduction of Eddie Brock and would have shown him becoming Venom. At one point, the villain would have been Carnage, though it was also thrown around that it could have had a different villain and Carnage could have been saved for a mid-credits sequence reveal. The movie would have apparently ended with Eddie being locked up at Rikers. In 2017, 2 films were planned. In the first half of 2017, we would have gotten a Black Cat solo movie that would have shown Felicia Hardy, presumably with Felicity Jones reprising her role. Not much was developed for this movie, though it apparently would have had Kingpin as the villain, with Felicia Hardy getting her lucky powers from him and becoming Black Cat. Interesting choice, but it was early days. The second half of 2017 would have seen a Spider-Man 2099 movie that would have shown the origin of Miguel O'Hara's Spider-Man in the future. The villain would have either been Morlun or Kron Stone, though potentially both. The movie would have ended with Miguel being sent back in time. In 2018, we'd get The Amazing Spider-Man 3. Obviously, I had a whole video on that and I won't go into much detail, but it would have featured Eddie Brock returning as Venom for the main villain, Peter mourning the loss of Gwen and meeting Mary Jane, and a little more setup for the Sinister Six. In 2019, there would have been 1 or 2 more movies. One of these would have been a Carnage movie that would have been a big event film with Spider-Man, Venom, Black Cat, and Spider-Man 2099 all teaming up to bring down Carnage. We might have also had the Sinister Six come out in 2019. I think they wanted to do a Spider-Man movie every other year, so having the Sinister Six come between makes sense. Clearly this movie would have shown the Sinister Six coming together. There's not much that's known about it, though apparently it would have taken an empathetic take on at least one of the characters. The lineup for the Sinister Six would have included the Green Goblin, the Norman Osborn version who is resurrected in The Amazing Spider-Man 3, Rhino, Kraven, the Vulture, Doc Ock and Mysterio, but maybe they would have had someone else in there that leaves at the end and gets replaced. It's unknown how most of these characters would have been introduced into the franchise, whether they would have been introduced in this movie or in earlier ones. In 2020, we would have gotten The Amazing Spider-Man 4, which would have been the climactic battle between Spider-Man and the Sinister Six. I personally have a theory that they would have killed off Peter Parker in this movie to make way for Miles Morales' Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield's original contract was for 3 movies, covering the Web trilogy. In the cancelled Spider-Man 4, Tobey Maguire wanted $20 million, plus a percentage of the film's gross, after making $4 million from Spider-Man, $17.5 million plus 5% of the box office gross for Spider-Man 2, and $15 million plus 7.5% of the box office gross for Spider-Man 3. So they were probably worried Andrew Garfield would want more and more money after his contract was up. After The Amazing Spider-Man 4, there weren't really many plans, so this is speculation for the most part. The Amazing Spider-Man 5 would have probably been Miles Morales learning to be Spider-Man, and The Amazing Spider-Man 6 would have been a live-action Spider-Verse movie. If they were doing Miles Morales, Spider-Man 2099, and having Morlun in Spider-Man 2099, then chances are they were doing Spider-Verse. Maybe Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone would be back. So what else? There were rumors that they were developing a Spider-Gwen movie with Emma Stone, though there isn't really any evidence that this was something that was actually happening at Sony. There were also rumors that there was a movie in development that was young Aunt May being a spy, and while Sony denied these rumors thanks to the Sony email hack, we know that they did at least consider it at some point. There are also various sequels in development for other movies they were planning. They planned to do another Spider-Man 2099 movie, which we know would have been Miguel in present day, protecting his descendant from the Scorpion, while also trying to get back to the future. I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up also wanting to do a third 2099 movie where Miguel was in the future again that set up The Amazing Spider-Man 6, before Miguel would be in that movie. They were also thinking of doing at least one sequel to Venom, which, if I had to guess, would have been an Agent Venom style movie of a redeemed Venom, and a sequel to the Sinister Six, which probably would have been more of a Suicide Squad or Thunderbolts style movie of the villains being forced by the government to work for them. But again, that's just speculation on my part. So what do you think? Would you have liked to see in these movies? Personally, I think there's potential in some of these ideas, but if The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is any indication of how Sony would have run this universe, I don't think I'd be very interested. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for daily videos on the franchises you love, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.